Welcome to another in our series of What We Wish We Had Known Before We Were Sex Therapists. I'm Sari Cooper, and I'm co-founder of the Erotic Intimacy Academy with my co-founder, Kelly Ghweinem. And today, because it's Men's Mental Health Awareness Month, we decided we wanted to talk about the connection between men's mental health with men's sexual health and how it shows up in a sex therapist's office. And one of the things we wanted to talk about is the function of pornography, or what we call sexually explicit media, and how it's presented. Those issues around pornography are presented to a sex therapist. So that's our intro. Kelly, do you want to start?
Sure. So people will come into the office either with in individual therapy or couples therapy. I'm really going to focus on individual therapy. Something that I've noticed lately, and by lately I mean the last couple of years, is people will come in and say, I think that I'm addicted to porn, or I think the usage of my porn is interfering with my sexual health and being able to like fantasize or being able to be in it with my partner. And as we're working together and doing some assessments, it really comes out that it's not so much that their porn usage is addictive or that it's compulsive even, but that they are using it as a way to manage their emotions. But a big emotion that's coming up for them or that's evoked by this porn usage is a feeling of shame or anxiety because, well, there's a number of reasons. And then that shame is really causing a lot of mental health issues for them because they're trying to figure out how to cope with those feelings of shame or guilt or anxiety around the type of porn they're watching, or just that they're using porn or sexually explicit material.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is the shame is what gives what causes them what we call distress, and that word is used in our DSM, our Diagnostic and Statistic Manual, to signify that a problem may not be actually a problem unless it causes distress, and that's true for many of the diagnoses in the sexual therapy world. So what causes them distress as well is that maybe that their partner is noticing that they're using pornography and masturbating more frequently than they are having partnered sex, right? And so then the issue comes from an external person to say, this is not cool, or this is not normal, or why are you doing this so much? And then it becomes a relational issue. And we may see that with a person who comes in by themselves, or he may come in with his partner, whatever the gender of his partner, right? I would also add to that, though, there's this issue around functionality. So people come in saying, I think I'm not getting the same kind of erections I used to with my partner. And they point to the fact that they're using the pornography as the reason, rather than why are they using, porn, or maybe compulsively they might be using it. And what is it that they're trying to regulate in terms of emotions? And that's where we get to the mental health piece as well, right? Because if someone actually has the clinical depression symptoms, they may, in the same way someone might drink more or they might use recreational drugs more, they may look to masturbation and pornography as a way to alleviate, at least for a few moments, right, or a few minutes, or maybe longer than that, as a relief and a release from the feelings of depression and anxiety that they're having due to a mental health disorder, right?
Yeah. And I've noticed too that sometimes people will come in and talk about how when they're feeling sick, or maybe they have, maybe the flu isn't a good example, but they have a cold and they're in bed for a couple days, then they do engage in, masturbating or watching porn for like kind of hours on end, and they feel like, oh, this is compulsive behavior, what's going on here? And they start to notice the pattern when I'm not feeling good, either, and this is like physically or emotionally, then I engage in this, and what's going on there, and taking a step back of like, okay, let's separate out that shame that you feel and start to process through, why are you doing this, right? Like, what role is the masturbation or the porn filling for you that you're not getting when you're laying in bed sick, or when you're feeling depressed? What are you trying to fill there? But it's and I definitely see this more with male assigned at birth clients and not female assigned at birth clients. I don't know if it's the same for you, but this is definitely something that is very gendered, that I'm noticing in my therapy room.
Yeah, definitely. And I also think that there's a way in which, because in our culture, like we have to look at the whole system. The culture does not necessarily, it supports men in a lot of different ways, but it doesn't support them in terms of feeling okay to seek out help, right? We know that men, the statistics show that men don't go to their GP or primary care physician for a checkup, and that they tolerate high levels of pain before they are ready to go seek out help. So the same is true in terms of mental health, even more, I would say. They're not going to seek out a counselor or therapist as quickly as a woman or someone who identifies as female will. And what we're trying to say is that it becomes like a sexual sort of outlet, right? To start, depending on something rather than go ask for help. And we only see them when they start becoming concerned or their partner becomes concerned around the usage. And it could either be the meaning of their using, or it could mean the actual frequency, which can go up. And it may interfere with their work and their relationship. So we're not saying that compulsive, masturbation and compulsive porn use doesn't exist. It does for some people. We're just saying that it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a symptom of what may be a complex series of underlying disorders. So, another disorder that tends to come into our office as with a presenting problem that has to do with masturbation and porn use is ADHD or ADD. So attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Many times men have not been diagnosed growing up, either as children or even as young adults. And so those symptoms are loud and clear when they come into our office because we do screen for that. And the novelty of new and, uh, sort of a bigger frequency or excitability that pornography can offer is something that helps people get out of their brain and just go into creative brain. So get out of analytic brain and go to creative brain. And especially people have a job that is actually very routinized, like it gets monotonous and they need something new. That's where they might go. But they may also be dealing with a lot of anxiety around the ADD and how it's impacting their lives. They're not getting ahead. They're making mistakes, like simple mistakes, and feeling shame about that. They're getting into arguments with their partner because their partner doesn't want to join them on adventures, and or the partner, it feels resentful about things that they're neglecting to do at home, shall we say.
Have you noticed, with people that do come in with ADHD, and that they some people will actually be like hyper focused on a certain um, type of sexually explicit material, or just like be hyper focused and trying to find the right one, and it's not necessarily in a compulsive way that we would think, but it is a symptom of their ADHD, or if that is even, if you're able to like diagnose that as a differential?
I always say to my clients who've not actually been spoken to about ADD, I say it's actually not a great name, because people talk about the distractibility of people with ADHD, but they're not talking about the hyperfocus, which can happen, right? Which is why for example, like many boys get really into video games, and maybe some girls too, right? They may get really hyper-focused, and it's really hard to get them to stop doing it and do their homework or come to dinner or whatever it is. And that's actually can be a symptom of, ADHD. It's that hyper focus of something that they love to do. And one of the things we help clients with sometimes is helping them guide them to a job or a career that they feel passionate about. Because they say, well, I don't have a problem at my job because I love my job, right? But it's the stuff that they have to do at home that gets really it's almost like, static in the brain to be doing something routinized and monotonous. So they have to sort of break it up. And I've had clients tell me, like, I just need a break in my day. And for them, it's like meditation. Like, I just go on porn. And it's just like something just triggers my brain. I can actually go back to the other stuff that I have to do that I don't like to do. But I also think for mental health, the thing that we have to talk about is men's feeling scared of saying the wrong thing, doing the wrong thing in relationships, in dating. And I know that there are plenty of heterosexual women who have a lot of complaints about men and in the dating sphere. But what I would say is that a lot of men feel like they don't know what they're supposed to do when they don't feel similarly, or they feel like they're not getting their needs met. And so they do cutoffs, right? Which is ghosting, really. What have you found with men in single men?
Yeah, I think similarly. Also, this kind of mainstream idea right now of the men's like loneliness epidemic, and that they don't know how to get in touch with their feelings, to get in touch with other people's feelings. So then they feel disconnected because they don't know how to have those deep social relationships that a lot of females assigned at birth are socialized for. So they feel very lonely in their romantic relationships, and they feel lonely in their friendships. And then they keep everything inside. And as we know, when you bottle things up or you repress them, it just gets worse. And so um, then, I'm seeing people that maybe they got to the point where they felt like I couldn't handle it, not in, like, a suicidal way, but in a way of, like, "This is not how I wanna be living my life. I want to, like, talk to someone about what's going on," and they come into therapy to figure out how to get in touch with their feelings and how to have deeper relationships with people. I think the deeper relationships is really a lot more of what I'm seeing, and then as we're working, it's like, "Okay, you get deeper relationships by learning to be in touch with your feelings." And once people are able to really have those deeper relationships, their lives feel so much more fulfilled, and their
Yeah.
symptoms of anxiety and depression decrease because they're socially connected with others.
Yeah, I've counseled a lot of people on going back to the things that they used to do when they were younger, and it was sort of built into their lives, whether it's at college or in high school even. And like whether they were a runner or they play tennis, or I mean, I live in an urban setting, so there are plenty of leagues to join to do stuff. But I think in any community you can meet people, right? And whether it's pickleball or even something that's less sports oriented, just like going fishing or whatever. And I think that what men say to me is like, yeah, but I can only talk about certain topics with men. I can't tell them about my wife. I certainly can't talk to them about my sex life. Um, and so, at CLS, we have run groups for men who have out of control sexual behavior, actually. And they're longer term groups, they're 4 months long or longer. And the men are of all ages, and they really support, and they're of different orientations sometimes, and they really support each other in each of their goals. They're also not willing to sort of put up with men who are kind of like deceiving their partners, actually. So it gives them kind of a values and check-in, like, that's not actually your values, and you said you wanted to do this, and why did you go do that? So they keep each other accountable. So I think men's groups are really an excellent way to not only foster community and ease the loneliness, but also to learn social skills.
I agree. I think that group therapy is a fantastic way for people to engage in community and learn from each other and have it be like a therapeutic space. And I don't think we have enough group therapy. Like, whenever I'm trying to find groups, it's really difficult to find. It's also difficult to like get them up and running, right? So it's interesting that it's like this much needed resource that provides a lot of benefit, but it's limited resource.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that it speaks to something that I've thought about starting up again. But it does take some time to get men to agree, right?
Hmm.
Doing it, because it feels like, well, it's not really like working. It's not
Yeah.
like doing something, you know?
Yeah. Because it's
It's
about
soft,
processing. Yeah.
even the fact that we call it soft skills.
I know.
I mean, I think they're basic skills on how to
Mhm.
be in community and with people.
Yeah.
But the fact that they call it soft skills means like it's not hard skills, which everyone,
Hmm.
I mean, just our language around it, coming to think of it.
Yeah. I completely agree.
Um, so I do hope that I think more men actually of younger generations are more willing to seek out help, actually.
Hmm.
Um, and also in terms of what I was talking before about in dating, I think that if you don't have an ability to express kind of what you're looking for, or what you need, or how you felt hurt, I think most men will just cut off.
Yep.
And and then these other, if they're heterosexual, I think women will just go, what just happened? Why did you do that?
Yeah.
Like, I don't get it. Well, they don't have the skills to say, that really bothered me when you chose to do this after you agreed to do this, or, I want more of this in our sex life, but I have no way of asking for that.
Yeah. And I think girls and women, we tend to learn that through socialization, like coming up through friendships, and boys don't really learn that in the same way. They're not socialized the same way. So as girls, like, we do have more of those skills, and it makes it difficult to think like, oh, well, men who are raised in our society too might not have that, and why they might not have that.
And I would think that gay men also have some of that. I mean,
Mhm.
they feel like it's there's, even though they're identified probably as gay early on, for themselves anyway, even if they haven't come out yet, they're still socialized in the larger context about
Mhm.
being men and winning, right,
Mhm.
and scoring, which is all language that men use. And I think there's a lot of sort of pressure in the gay community or queer community on winning, right?
Mhm. Yeah. And I think, a couple of our videos ago, we were talking about expansive therapy, and like gender affirming therapy or queer affirming therapy. And I think that's an important aspect if you're going to work with the LGBTQ or queer community, understanding how people are socialized and queer culture, so that when you have a gay couple in front of you, or you have a gay client in front of you, you have that understanding already, and you're not putting cis hetero norms on to a client, or you're just assuming they're so different that um, they can't be anything like how cis hetero men are socialized.
Well, what I was trying to say, I think it's both and. I agree with you. Like,
Mhm.
I think that they've internalized, many people who are queer have internalized
Mhm.
heteronormative um, qualities and ideals, if you will,
Mhm.
about what success looks like, even in dating and relationships. And then they're, and then if they've come out early and
Mhm.
they have community in the queer community, they learn different, some different, some internalized, some.
Mhm.
I think it's a both and I think you have to be much more open when working with people who identify as queer to listen to their narrative and
Mhm.
ask more about without making assumptions, right?
Yeah. Well, this was a
You know,
good conversation today.
no, I wonder what, I don't have the stats on it, but I do wonder what the statistics are about gay or queer men in
Mhm.
terms of their willingness to seek out mental health services versus those who identify as heterosexual. Like, I'm
Hmm.
really curious what those stats are.
Yeah, I wonder too.
Yeah, we'll have to look into that and get back to
Yeah.
you.
Well, thank you all for joining us. And if you're interested in seeing more of our videos, they're on our YouTube channel, Erotic Intimacy Academy, or you can check out our website at www.eroticacademy.net.
And sign up for our newsletter
Mm-hmm.
and follow us on Instagram.
Yeah, that's erotic_intimacy_academy.
Bye for now.